All right, and we're live. All right, if you're tuning in right now, I am joined by a special guest, the Death Watch. He's going by Pro Death Penalty right now. We are going to be looking at Kyle Kulinski, who is a familiar face on this show. Uh, to, However, instead of examining Kyle's atrocious foreign policy, we're going to be examining his position on the death penalty, which is no less abhorrent. So let's not waste any time and
Real
let's.
quick, do you mind if I just do a quick intro?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So, as Suzuki said, I am the Death Watch, but that's my Twitter handle. On Twitter, I go by Pro Death Penalty. I am, as my handle suggests, a staunch supporter of capital punishment, but I also believe that we should reform the system as opposed to keeping it the way it is, which is why I advocate for a better death penalty, as well as I tried to debunk as many anti-death penalty fallacies and false equivalencies that I see all the time. So without any further delay, let's just get right to this absolute cancer.
Yes, I'm ready to lose more brain cells. And I just watched a Jimmy Dore video, so there's not much left to lose. Okay.
The audio is not very good. I cannot hear a thing.
That's weird. Hold on. Maybe I forgot to share audio. Give me a minute. Oh, bloody hell. This is not supposed to happen. Hold on 1 minute. Technical issues. I think what's happening is I forgot to link the audio. Give me a minute.
How many people? You've never done this before.
I've never done this, but right now it's showing one person is watching.
Right.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, just like a split second of it, not really anything else.
I think I know what's causing it. I think the echo feedback. So I'll
I can't hear anything.
I'm so sorry. This has never happened.
It's all right.
Minute. Here, if you hold on, stop screen. Here, I'm gonna try something.
For the audience who might be curious, my avatar is the Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall. He writes absolutely fucking great responses to death row appeals, and they're absolute masterpieces. So he's probably one of my favorite attorneys general when it comes to dealing with death penalty cases, because he just fucking annihilates death row inmate claims.
So I'm gonna try to do is download the video and just broadcast the file. See if that can get around it.
Okay.
Video file.
So the governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster.
Is that working?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Well, let's start. Let's try this. Okay. So yeah, that delayed the pain a little while. So
Rip
let's
fucking Band-Aid up.
Yeah.
So the governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster, he signed a bill last week to require that death row inmates pick between firing squad or the electric chair. Now, for a long time, the lethal injection was the go-to way that the U.S. and the various states carry out capital punishment.
What was that?
Oh, I just said it's in response to his comment about lethal injection, but
Oh yeah. Anytime you want to refute a point, just let me know and I'll pause the video.
okay.
And listen, they'd probably argue that, hey, the reason why we do that is because it's more moral, and so we want to put people down in a way that's not unethical or whatever. That's all bullshit. The fact of the matter is, we relied on the lethal injection because it made us feel better about what we are actually doing, that we're killing another human.
No, it's because, death penalty opponents would fucking cry and bitch and whine about if we used a firing squad or any other method. So basically, with these people, there's no winning. It's a lose-lose no matter what. I mean, these people aren't interested in any method of execution anyway, so it's not a good point to really reason with them.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, lethal injection is the electric chair is more humane for the inmate than lethal injection. I mean, the electric chair, the person is brain dead in less than like a 1/240th of a second, which is.
So in other words, the inmate is out before he even knows it.
Yeah, the brain can't even register pain that fast. So Kyle's insinuation that we're doing that. This is a common Kyle tactic. He strawmans his opposing argument, and then pretends like he's some brilliant mastermind by heroically destroying that straw man. Like, I've never heard a pro claim that, like, oh, we did lethal injection because it's more humane. I've never heard a serious pro ever claim that. The only reason I think he's doing is because he's trying to he's trying to make it look like we're just killing people for the sake of killing people, and we're just trying to do it in like a visually appealing way.
I mean, these people aren't going to be convinced anyway. I mean, there's no winning with them, so why even bother trying?
Yeah. Well, okay. All right. Let's continue. Let's continue the pain.
Being. So that's really why we did it. But what happened is the various pharmaceutical companies that made the drug cocktail, it's a 3-drug cocktail that would be used to kill people, they stopped making it. And they stopped making it mostly because I think it's European companies, and they're like, we don't have the death penalty over here, and we don't agree with it, so they actually stopped making it. And so ever since that happened, various states in the U.S. that embrace the death penalty have been struggling to find a replacement. One of the things that they've done is come up with other drug cocktails to kill people. Well, guess what? A lot of them were either not the right dosage or not a good drug mix, and there were mistakes. This happened years ago. We've talked about this. Somebody was foaming at the mouth, and they injected him, and he was supposed to die, but he didn't die until like hours later, and it was this whole thing. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
That happened once, and that was that was the one in Arizona. I think the one he's referring to is Joseph Wood. I mean, it's hard to tell. That's the only one I can think of that took over an hour.
Give me one sec. So, an anesthesiologist and associate professor at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center said that about Joseph Wood's execution, quote, "This doesn't actually sound like a botched execution. This actually sounds like a typical scenario if you used that drug combination."
Yeah, they used hydromorphone, which is that's a pretty weak opioid. And of course, Kyle is not. I already know Kyle's not going to mention this. He's not going to bring up Carrie Dean Moore, who was executed with fentanyl. That execution went not only did it go well, it went better than expected. He died before all the rest of the drugs are injected.
A pharmacist, I think at the University of Nebraska, said that Moore probably died 2 to 3 minutes after getting fentanyl.
Yeah, and that's actually why I think they closed the curtain
Yeah.
midway through the
The
execution.
curtain in the Nebraska State Penitentiary death chamber was closed because at some point during the procedure, that could have been because he just died too soon. Because they were using 4 drugs as opposed to the traditional 3 drugs that states are using less and less because they've just done with 1 drug.
Yeah, and I also like to point out, Kyle had like a brief moment of self awareness. He said that European companies refusing to sell us drugs is why we have to try new combinations. It's like, well, yes, that's the point. It's if Europe has no one but themselves to blame for these botched executions and these experimental cocktails.
You know, Antonin Scalia, late Justice Antonin Scalia, actually alluded to this in the decision in Glossop versus Gross, which was decided in 2015 over whether or not the drug midazolam was constitutional for executions. He basically said that the reason why states aren't able to get the 100% drug, and by the way, I'm paraphrasing, is because European governments and pharmaceutical companies are making it almost impossible to obtain those 100% drugs. So it's basically a game of why are you hitting yourself?
Yeah, I mean they're trying to set it up to fail. I mean, it seems like they're trying to make it as difficult as possible, just so they can get the excuse to abolish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so, in response to those few instances of that happening with the new drug, they were like, okay, we got to just get away from lethal injection altogether. Instead of just getting rid of the death penalty, a lot of the states are like, just do something other than the lethal injection.
Yes, yes, that's the right course of action, Kyle. That is what states should be doing. I think if it gets to the point where you're abolishing the death penalty because you can't carry it out, you're basically giving in to the antis, which is not fair. I believe it's the only acceptable punishment for certain murders, like like the likes of Mark Hopkinson or Lawrence Bittaker, or people who pose extreme future dangerousness.
And I'm about to make a very controversially hot take, but I'll go as far as to say sometimes it is so morally unacceptable to not seek the death penalty that I feel like it's morally tantamount to not punishing that person at all. I mean, for someone like Kabani Savage, who ordered 6 murders while he was in solitary and awaiting trial for 6 other murders, the only justice will be when he gets those 5 grams of pentobarbital. Anything less is a travesty of justice of the highest degree.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you have a recidivist killer who ordered murders or committed murders while he's in prison, and you don't sentence him to death, that's tantamount to not punishing him at all. I mean,
yeah. Especially if they're serving life already.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. He is. I am very worried about Biden commuting federal death row. Caboni Savage is on federal death row, and I'm very worried about that because I am willing to bet that someone like Caboni Savage has either tried to order murders from ADX, the prison where he's being held, or has actually ordered murders from ADX.
Not to mention that 2 inmates who are currently on the federal death row were already serving life sentences for prior murders, and then they murdered other inmates in maximum security.
I remember Agofsky was one of them. Who was the other one?
The other one is Joseph Ebron.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, this video has already gone off the rails. Let's see how crazy it gets.
So what did they do? Well, here you have it. Some states are leaning more in favor of the electric chair. Some states are leaning more in favor of firing squad. And that's where we are. So now the South Carolina governor's like, gonna make you pick. If you're an inmate, how do you want to go? Firing squad or electric chair? This is in the year 2021.
Pause. Okay.
Oh,
two things. Number one, it's 2021, and it's about fucking time these death sentences are enforced. The 3 inmates who are currently eligible for execution in South Carolina have spent a combined total of almost 60 years, if not more, awaiting execution, and they're collectively responsible for 5 murders, at least.
Those 3 inmates just have 5 murders in 60 years
on death row combined, yeah. And also, Um, isn't Kyle Kulinski pro-choice?
Yeah,
I'm surprised he opposes death row inmates having the right to choose what method they get. I thought he was pro-choice.
yeah. No, he's only pro-choice when it comes to allowing genocidal dictators to massacre their own people. He thinks they should be given the choice whether or not to do that.
And just before anyone starts with the "oh, but my pro-life," I'm pro-choice, so shut the fuck up.
I get that all the time, and I stump the antis when I respond like I'm pro-choice.
Here, my response to that is basically, how can you call yourself pro-choice if you don't allow a jury to have the right to choose to impose a death penalty? You're not pro-choice if you oppose the death penalty.
Yeah, yeah, and not to mention that uh, uh what was it what was it? Kyle said something. Kyle used to say like he didn't oppose the death penalty in principle, um, but like I remember he said he didn't care about Dylan Roof getting it. But the thing is, like, I don't know how many of these antis realize that if you get rid of the death penalty, you get rid of it for all cases. I've met a lot of antis who think like, oh well, we can keep it for certain murderers and all that. It's like, well, that's not how the law works.
Well, if you get rid of it for everyone, it gets rid of it for everyone.
Yeah, like they say, oh, well, how come Charles Manson got commuted? Well, because you abolished it in California at the time. That was and that applied to everyone. So, as I often say, you either support it for some cases or oppose it in all cases. There really is no in between.
Yeah, and it's fun to oppose it for most cases and support it for a select few. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the number of aggravators that make someone eligible for a death penalty should be narrowed. Yeah, you can make an argument for that. Um, I don't want it to get too narrow because then you can never it's going to be more difficult to seek it and it could just drain money. But at the same time, I think if you make it narrow, where you reduce the arbitrariness and you also have fewer
You begin to cut
fewer
off
people in death row,
the
which means
down on
fewer
the
appeals.
arbitrariness argument, which they thrive on.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. Let's let old Kremlin Kulinski continue.
I mean, listen. If you're going to force me to answer that question, if I'm an inmate, I'm going firing squad every single time. Not even close. At least with firing squad, if they get you in the right spot in the head or whatever, you're out. There's
This is not the most important part of that, but they don't aim for the head in the firing squad. That's like not even close to the uh, to the thing that's the most wrong with that statement. But I just want to put that out there. Firing squad does not aim for the head; they aim for the heart because of the open casket.
And center mass.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's nothing. Yeah, they're marksmen. Marksmen are trained to aim for center mass. Um. Anyway,
less pain compared to every other way that you're going to go. But
okay,
That's a
that's not
profound
even
pause
true.
right there, by the way.
That's completely. I mean, I would actually firing squad. I actually don't know whether it causes instantaneous death if you're shot in the heart. My guess is the shock would probably render you.
Out.
You wouldn't really be you wouldn't be awake for very long. Um, but with the electric chair, you're out instantly. Like
Also, may I
within.
point out that not only are these inmates going to suffer less pain than their victims, but in all likelihood, the person who's being executed is going to suffer a lot less than you or I or whoever's listening to this is going to suffer when we die. I mean, keep in mind the leading causes of death are cancer and heart disease, and those things take months, if not years, to kill, and you basically just decay slowly over time. I'd rather take even like 10, 15 minutes of, the worst case scenario for an electrocution than to suffer that long with cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the day I'm gonna die. I don't know what age I'll be. I don't know
And
what's
you don't know
gonna
why
be
you're
from.
doing
Yeah, I don't get that luxury, but a death row inmate gets time to prepare for that, and his death is dictated by a protocol specifically tailored to ensure that he suffers the least. Um, I not many people get that. Get
Also,
in life.
the 37 inmates currently on South Carolina's death row are collectively responsible for at least 62 murders, and their victims were shot, strangled, burned alive, beaten, stabbed, suffocated. These people aren't on death row for smoking pot or jaywalking. They're on death row because they committed capital murder. And again, these inmates are going to suffer a lot less than their victims did. No matter
Yeah,
what.
I mean, on that point, actually, I should bring up South Carolina was the state that executed Donald Gaskins, who was the second worst person I've ever studied. In case you're wondering, Lawrence Bittaker is the worst, but Gaskins is a close second. Um, Gaskins was pretty much the poster child for the death penalty.
I can get it. I can basically talk about him. So, this
Yeah.
guy was, even before he was 18, he was committing several crimes. He nearly murdered a girl that he and another friend had raped. He was sent to the prison, and there, while he was in prison, while he was already an adult, he stabbed another inmate to gain respect for the other inmates. Then, stupidly, they paroled him, and then he murdered as many as 20 people throughout the state of South Carolina, men, women, and children. And then he got the death penalty for that, but his sentence was commuted to life because South Carolina law changed. Then, while he was serving a life sentence at the maximum security South Carolina State Penitentiary in fucking solitary, he was somehow able to obtain C4 and literally built a bomb and blew up another inmate. And 3 weeks before Donald Gaskins was executed for this murder, because he got the death penalty for the murder of this inmate, 3 weeks before he was executed, it was discovered that he had attempted to arrange the kidnapping of the fucking prosecutor's daughter, who was then, I think, 3 or 4 years old. And 3 weeks later, Gaskins was executed. He's never murdered since. The only reason that prosecutor, who is now a senator in South Carolina, Senator Dick Harpootlian, the only reason Harpootlian's daughter is still alive is because Gaskins went to the fucking chair. That's the only reason. There is no doubt he would have tried again if he had not.
Oh, I'm 100% convinced. He would have killed as long as he was alive. He indicated as much, and he indicated just as much. In fact, Gaskins, I mean, setting aside the future dangerousness, the method in which he killed his victims was some of the worst I've ever seen in my life. And that's saying a lot considering the people I've studied. A lot of these were the murders of the '60s. He wrote about how he kidnapped a hitchhiker. He cut off the tip of her breast and forced her to eat it. He tortured her with molten lead. He raped her with his knife, like with the blade. This guy and then he tied her he broke her bones, tied her to a log, and then drowned her in a river. Like this guy was just really, I can't understate just how vile this person was.
Another thing, the last person executed in South Carolina is a guy named Jeffrey Motz. He was initially serving a life sentence for a double murder that he had actually been facing the death penalty for, but the jury split on the death sentence, so he got life without parole. While he was serving life without parole in a maximum security prison, he murdered another inmate and then told investigators, well, I'm serving a life sentence. What's another one going to do anyway?
Was that the one he got death for? I forget if he killed twice.
He got death for the murder of that inmate.
Yeah, and I should point out he was executed almost exactly 10 years ago. It was in May of 2011. Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot about old Kyle, who looks like he's trying to kiss someone, probably Caboni Savage's ass. So let's continue.
In every other way that you're going to go. But obviously, the answer is they shouldn't even be asking this question at all. And the fact of the matter is, this is the only fact I need to know about the death penalty to make up my mind on the death penalty. There was a study that came out years ago in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and they found that at least 4% of people on death row are innocent.
This is a very, very misleading study, and You know, study he's referring to.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. Well, first of all, in the context of the video, he was talking about South Carolina. I challenge anyone to look at the current death penalty cases, all 37 of them currently in South Carolina, and find me any evidence at all that any of those 37 inmates are actually innocent of murder. And none of the inmates who were executed between 1985 and 2011. And the reason I'm choosing these dates is because that's under the current death penalty statute. Not a single fucking one of them had any actual innocence claims. Check. Prove me wrong. Check.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the antis are going to bring up George Stinney. He was the 14-year-old
By the
executed
way, it was an
in South
absolutely
Carolina.
horrible thing.
Yeah,
Keep in mind, though, that is nearly 80 years ago. A lot of shit has changed in South Carolina in 80 years. Not only is it now not possible to prosecute him the way he was, if there's no way his charges would have held up under current systems.
I mean, yeah. If they tried him today, well, first of all, he would have been way too young for even life without parole under South Carolina law. Um, he would have that case had it not been thrown out. Like literally everything has changed. The chair is different. The chamber is different. The laws are different. The protocol is different. Um, the like to and so I really hate it when the antis bring up cases like George Stinney's to argue against our current death penalty system. You
Yeah,
might as well bring up the execution of Jesus. You know, it's really that's how different the legal systems are.
yeah, and also, oh yeah, the for arguing about when it comes to South Carolina, what do death penalty opponents have in showing that in the current under the current statutes that there's been an innocent person being executed? They have fucking nothing. They have zero.
Yeah, and but also I want to point out that this 4% study is also highly misleading. I think it refers to for every inmate executed, there's one exonerated. Um, but I think when you look at the total number of death sentences passed post Furman, which is around 8,000 or something, and then you look at the number of exonerees, the number comes actually around more to 1%, 1 to 2%.
Yeah,
And even then, I think I don't know exactly how many executions have been. I know there's over 1,500.
1520, no, 1533, I think, as of the 19th, because there was
Yeah,
no.
of those, I think there are something like 20 whose guilt was in doubt, or something like that. And but of those, having looked at those cases, I'm only convinced of the innocence of two. One is Johnny Garrett, who was executed in Texas in I don't know, was it 92? I have to
92,
check
yeah,
again. Yeah, and the other one was Walter Barton, who was executed last year.
in Missouri.
Um, yeah, but I think that while those cases were tragic, and I think I think it was an absolute travesty of justice that they were executed. The way to fix that is not to abolish the death penalty. It's to change the laws regarding um, evidence testing and prosecutorial misconduct.
Another
You need
thing,
to,
before
yeah,
before the typical death penalty opponents will respond with one innocent person being executed is one too many. My reply to that is, in the same time, of those about 50, just over 1,500 executions, at least 60 of them were inmates who had been previously punished, legally punished for murder, didn't get the death penalty. Then they either got released and they murdered again, or they were kept in prison for life and they murdered again, or they escaped and murdered again. And they've murdered collectively at least 160 people. That
yeah,
could
and I
have
think
that would still be alive if they weren't executed for their original murder convictions.
oh yeah,
Would
exactly, and
say at least
also
160 something recidivist murders are 160 something too many, by the way.
oh yeah, I agree like completely. And I've noticed that the death penalty opponents never bring them up. Like whenever I brought up like Mark Hopkinson, that's one you should go to. Um, he was a recidivist murderer in Wyoming. They either ignore me or they say like, "Oh, put him in solitary." It's like he was in solitary. What more are you gonna do?
Political is solitary too. That's the same thing they always do. It's all about moving the goalposts. Anyone who's listening who's against the death penalty, let me tell you this. There is no doubt that death penalty opponents will go after life without parole the moment the death penalty is ever abolished, and I hope that doesn't happen. Because their movement is about moving the goalposts. I mean, their solutions to people like Hopkinson being, oh well, most solitary. They also want to get rid of that too.
Yeah, and also just solitary didn't stop Hopkinson, and then another one of their claims is oh well, the prison should have done better. It's like at this point you're really starting to blame the victim when you're blaming the prison for Hopkinson's decision to murder people. I mean, at some point, these
Just
people are
own up that you just really just want to throw shit at anyone but the murderer.
Yeah. At that point they're not just like opponents of the death penalty. They're opponents of accountability.
Yeah. And I used to not really believe that because I was like, I can't believe that they could be that fucking stupid. But unfortunately they're convincing me more and more and more that they're just opposed to accountability in general.
Yeah,
murderers being executed, they say society failed them. No, these inmates failed themselves. They have no one to blame but themselves for being on that gurney or in the chair. And they have no one but themselves to blame for the pain that their families are going to be going through.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. Like in my previous video on the death penalty, I said like the reason I support it is because it enforces a system of consequences. I think that if you commit aggravated first degree murder, you forfeit your right to life. The consequence for that heinous crime is the forfeiture of your right to life.
Yeah.
And I think that anything less than that is not it doesn't provide full accountability. It doesn't provide full consequence for your actions.
You cannot really expect the seriousness of these crimes to be taken for what they are unless the consequences are not only enforced but enforced in full.
Yeah.
Let's continue the video.
Yep.
Innocent. So there is zero doubt that innocent people have been executed. In fact, a lot of innocent people have been executed.
Citation needed, Kyle. Of course, he never put citations in any of his videos, and I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure he didn't do that with this one either. At most, if we're being generous, at most, there's maybe 10 or 11 innocent inmates executed post Furman, and that's being generous. I'm only convinced of 2.
That's less than 1%, by the way.
Yeah.
But we've already kind of addressed the innocence argument, so it would be redundant to continue addressing it unless you really.
That's all I need to know. You can't have the death penalty. Gotta ban it. Gotta ban it. Even if you agree with it in principle, even if you say, hey, somebody commits a murder, kills 20 people, and cold-blooded, and there's no sign of rehabilitation, even if you believe that, and the person did kill the 20 people, and they have no remorse, you still have to say no death penalty because the deal is, it's a package deal. If you say we get to kill that guy, you also have to kill a number of innocent people along with that person dying.
No, you don't. No, that's not how anything works.
That's literally the opposite of how our justice system works. Our justice system is designed to look at each case individually. I mean, there are some cases where there may be question about the person's guilt, which is why we need to raise procedural and evidentiary standards. Someone like Robert Erlong, who was the guy who shot those people at those massage parlors in Georgia. That dude was caught in 4K murdering 8 people. No question about guilt. The arguments that death penalty opponents could use about innocence or racially biased or inconsistently applied, those arguments vanish when you look at that case, as they should.
Oh yeah, there's no basis. Like
dude was caught in 4K.
Yeah, there's no doubt he did it, and that's but Kyle's implying like everyone's case is identical, or something. It's not. We don't. If someone's guilt is in question, that will be raised on appeal. Robert Aaron Long is not going to argue factual innocence because he can't. It's that defense won't hold up in court,
Yeah.
and that also makes it less likely that he'll avoid execution if he gets the death penalty. I think what he's going to try and do is a insanity defense. I don't think that will work, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
And so then the question becomes, are you morally okay with your tax dollars killing innocent people? My answer is hell no. I'm not okay with it when we do endless war. I'm not.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. I did not see this part yet. Okay. I have
Yeah.
to prepare. Okay, let's
Let me-
rewind.
real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't support my tax dollars being used to execute murderers if they commit recidivist murders. That is just as bad as executing an innocent person. And for Kyle Kulinski to ignore that is just absolutely fucking stupid. There are more recidivist murders than you think. There are more recidivist murders than you will probably ever know. In the early 2000s, the feds did a sting operation on one gang, the Nuestra Familia gang, in California's Pelican Bay prisons, along with other prisons. This was called Operation Black Widow, and they found that this gang had ordered dozens of murders from the SHU, or Special Housing Unit, at Pelican Bay, which is a supermax prison in California. They ordered murders from fucking solitary, and a lot
Not
of those
just
they don't
not
need.
just solitary, but one of the most secure prisons in the country.
Yeah. Oh yeah, don't forget they want to abolish solitary. Just in
Oh
case.
yeah. And Bernie wants them to have unlimited video calls. It's like, yeah, I'm sure that will go perfectly well. I mean, Mark Hopkinson was able to order the murder of a witness using a girl's high school yearbook.
Yeah,
Imagine what he could have done with unlimited video calls.
Inmates can come up with. Inmates do use written code that can avoid detection by the guards. They actually do this thing in prison where you communicate with inmates who aren't in your cell, who aren't within your cell. But basically, what they do is they get a piece of string from their clothing, the prison jumpsuit, and then they add. They have a note that they attach, and they add like a little weight to it, like a paper clip or like a piece of soap, and then they just swing it out. And they basically, this is called phishing. They basically do this. They pass notes between cells and out of cell units, and that's how they order a lot of murders and a lot of hits. That now death penalty opponents will either respond with, "Oh well, that's security fault," or they could just respond with, "Oh, but those are gang members." Wrong. Not just gang members, because see, gangs will often attempt to or succeed in eliminating witnesses to their crimes. Not only that, but some gangs will take it even further, where they won't just target gang members who piss them off, but also their families or kids, police officers who arrested them in the past, other correctional officers. All they need is a tiny amount of string, a piece of paper, and a writing utensil. And
Was that like fishtailing or
they want, if they know how to do it.
what? What was that method called where they send the messages?
They send
Phishing?
what are called they're called kites,
Oh,
but they pass notes between cells.
yeah, I've seen that. Like these people really, they have all day to think of new methods to get to get messages past prison security.
Yeah.
Also, I should point out, Kyle's complained about his tax dollars killing innocent people. I don't want my tax dollars going to support some inmate who can now kill without impunity. Who can now kill with impunity from his cell because the state has abolished the death penalty. I don't want to. I don't want to contribute to that. I don't want my tax dollars paying for someone like Hopkinson to continue to run his criminal enterprise. And of course, he did the endless wars meme, but that's for another video.
Yeah.
Not okay with it when it comes to the death penalty. No matter how airtight the system is and how many procedures are in the way and the process that's set up to make sure we don't get innocent people, we will get innocent people. That's what this study finds. So at least 4% of the people are innocent. It's probably more than that, which Lord knows how many innocent people we've killed over the history of this country. Thousands with the death penalty? I don't know.
We haven't even executed close to that in this nation's history.
Also,
I don't know.
and this is just, and by the way, I love how they have to go to pre 1976 death penalty statutes. We don't use those anymore. Those are unconstitutional as fuck. We are talking about death penalty executions from 1976 onwards.
Yeah, this is another thing I've noticed with the antis. I don't know whether they consciously realize it or not. Um, they don't seem to realize that like the death penalty post 1972 with the Furman versus Georgia decision is not the same as it was like pre 1972.
Yeah.
You could almost say that the United States abolished the death penalty and then reinstated it.
Yeah,
it's really
they bring up but it evolved from lynching. First of all, the death penalty's been around longer than lynching. Number two, the two things are polar opposites. Lynching is the unlawful extrajudicial killing of a person for a perceived offense. The death penalty is the lawful carrying out of a death sentence by a judicial system. They are complete fucking opposites. And for those who like to bring up African Americans were disproportionately affected by the death penalty when it came to cases of rape. Yeah, we no longer have that. Every single person who's been executed by the U.S. post 1976 was convicted of capital murder. Not a single convicted. It is no longer constitutional to execute someone for crime at the state level other than capital murder.
Yeah, and even then, the scope of capital murder is quite limited. I mean, and also even before 1972, I think the last time we executed someone for rape was in 1963.
I'm not sure about that. I would have to check.
But yeah, I thought it was Eddie Lee Mays, but I have to check again. Also, but yeah, Kyle's claiming that we've killed thousands of innocent people with the death penalty. I don't know. I don't know exactly how many have executed over the course of this nation's history. I know it's less than 10,000, like a lot less. But I really think that like even when you're looking at it pre 1972, the numbers just aren't even close to what Kyle says they are.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to end it on that alone. Again, even if you agree with it in principle, you have to be against it. And the fact that we're still doing it at this late date, it's incredibly barbaric. It puts us on a list with a bunch of countries you wouldn't want to be on a list with.
Yeah, I love this argument. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
Let me knock this out. Okay. First and foremost, we aren't like Saudi Arabia, China, North Korea, Iran, Iraq, or Syria. Do you know why? Because we actually have constitutional protections for defendants who are facing trials, especially for death penalty cases. Also, we're a fucking democracy. We aren't like fucking Saudi Arabia or China or all those other countries.
Yeah. Also, even if you're sentenced to death, the odds of you being executed are, what is it, like 1%?
Yeah.
Like 9 out of 10 times, you'll either have your sentence commuted or you'll die, or you'll just die while awaiting execution.
Yeah. Also, again, we carry out executions for capital murder. Saudi Arabia does it for gays, drug users, rapists, apostates, blasphemers.
Or my favorite, waging war on God, which I think is the funniest crime ever. It's like, how do you prove that? Do you like call God to the stand, and
Allah.
you ask him like,
I'm reporting you to Allah.
yeah, do you call Allah to the stand, and be like, did this man wage war against you? And then like, how do you prove that? Anyway, yeah, we don't use that. We don't do that here, and I think it's really asinine to compare the two systems.
Yeah. That's literally comparing like an apple to a fucking Ferrari or a fucking
Yeah, it's
Boeing 737. They're complete fucking opposites, bro.
yeah.
And I think it's time we evolved. Listen, I believe in violence for self-defense only.
Then you should believe in executing recidivist murderers. But
Yeah,
here we
fucking
are.
Tom Gaskins is. That is a good case of self defense.
Hmm.
Even if you get
Also,
rid of the death
yeah,
penalty for most crimes, at least fucking keep it for people like Donald Gaskins or Mark Hopkinson.
yeah. I mean, like there is. I mean, at that point, it really is self-defense. I mean, if you don't kill these guys, they're going to kill again.
Only. This is not a case of self-defense. If you've arrested the person, they're already arrested.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that. Yeah, that's never that's never gone wrong before. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
can you
mean,
think of anyone who's ever escaped custody or killed in while in prison?
ooh, the
I mean,
Texas 7, Randy Greenewalt, Earl Van Dett, and Kenneth Williams. I can go on and on and on. Um, also,
like,
your punishment doesn't end just because you're incarcerated.
yeah, and even then, they want to like I've seen the Justice Democrats platform, which Kyle helped co-found. Um, their idea of a justice system would make even Norway hang their heads in shame. I mean, I've seen some Justice Democrats who want to completely get rid of life without parole. Um, uh, I've seen some that say like inmates should be allowed to vote from prison. They should be allowed to they should be allowed like work release, regardless of the crime. Bernie said they should have unlimited phone and video call privileges.
Yeah, it's
Um,
going to make murders, prison ordered murders, even more frequent and more untraceable.
yeah, and what else did he say? Oh yeah, he also wanted them to vote. Even when given the opportunity to clarify, he doubled down. That's what lost. That's how he lost my vote permanently. Was with saying that the Boston Bomber should be allowed to vote. It's like no, the only thing the Boston Bomber should be allowed to choose is his last meal.
And his last word.
Yeah, I wouldn't even grant him that dignity. He's not even worth that.
If they're so heinous a criminal, they have to spend life in prison. Okay, let them spend life in prison. But
Yeah, it doesn't always work out that way, Kyle.
Oh yeah, and yeah. By the way, these are the same people who want to get rid of that too, because of the same. They're basically the same fucking arguments against the death penalty for stuff to use against life without parole. The argument of it's 2021 or my current year. It doesn't deter crime. It's expensive. Other Western countries don't use it. It's moving the goalpost. Bottom line.
Yeah, I really like that what you said about the anti-death penalty movement. You said with the anti-death penalty movement, moving
It,
the goalposts is the rule, not the
it's
exception.
the rule, not the exception.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, these people will always move the goalposts. Um, you can see it happening in my state, Massachusetts. Um, you know, we do have life without parole here, but it's it's there are bills in the legislature right now that are trying to get rid of it. The murder of Jeffrey Curley, which is I think the most infamous crime in modern, aside from the Boston bombing, probably is the most infamous crime in the state's history. He's up for parole right now. The parole board hasn't decided whether he be released yet, but that was a consequence of narrowing what life without parole can be, what crimes it can be applied to. And not only that, my state has released 41 first degree murderers who were serving life without parole on medical leave. Like they got compassionate release. And some of these people were like mob bosses, mob hitmen. They were like, and yeah, they were sentenced to life, but now they're out of prison because they had somebody say like, oh, they're sick. It's repugnant. They will always move the goalposts. And I
Yeah.
think you have to draw the line and say, no, I'm not even going to grant you that first inch.
you can't kill him. You can't do it because they're no longer a threat to society. You've neutralized the threat. You've taken them out of society, and to kill
Ooh,
that person,
pause that real quick. What also neutralizes a threat that a convicted murderer poses? The death penalty.
Yeah.
There is a 0% reoffending rate.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't think of a single executed murderer that is killed
No
again.
one can. No one can.
Yeah.
No
I
one.
mean, I've really racked my brain around this, but, take Mark Hopkinson, for instance. Dude was ordering murders from 1977 to 1992, but suspiciously, after 12:57 a.m. on January 22nd, 1992, all those murders being ordered by Hopkinson suddenly stopped.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened. Um, I've been trying to think about I wonder if this question will ever be answered. Why Mark Hopkinson hasn't
Those are top 10
ordered?
questions Sanks can't answer. It
Yeah,
definitely won't be the death penalty. That definitely can't be the answer, man.
no, it must be. I don't know. Is he his bio? It's almost like his biological functions ceased to operate or something.
So fuck him, man.
I don't know.
you have to kill at least 4% innocent people. And I'm not okay with that. You can't be okay with that. And here we are having this ridiculous conversation in 2021. Electric chair or firing squad? We shouldn't be having that conversation at all. But of course, since I'm a weirdo, I will answer it. I would pick firing squad 10 out of 10 times.
What's funny is Kyle is right. We should not be having this conversation, but people like him are forcing us to have this conversation. If the antis had stopped pressuring the drug manufacturing companies to stop selling lethal injection drugs to us, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be having to use these austere methods. But people like Kyle have kind of forced our hand.
Yeah, like personally, I don't think we should use a firing squad. I think we should stick with the chair and injection. I don't understand why the legislators in South Carolina decided that to add another method, as that would complicate things even further.
Yeah, I mean,
Here we are.
yeah, yeah, and that's a problem with. I think like the firing squad should only be used. Well, I would prefer it only be used by the military.
Last resort.
Yeah, but I think right now the only state that should be allowed to use it is Utah because they're the only ones that actually have a protocol and a chamber for it.
Yeah.
South Carolina is just wasting time by introducing it. And on that note, actually, um, this is another reason why I really get frustrated with the pro death penalty people. In
The shooty thing's cool.
Yeah,
Her.
if you look at this, hold on, let me see if I can upload.
Are you showing the meme?
Yep, I am.
It's a great meme. They keep doing the meme.
Let's see. Share screen.
I will actually say about Kyle Kulinski, I'm glad he didn't use that but my pro-life argument because it's so fucking annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I will give him credit for that. I mean, a lot of the people in the comment section of that video were using that argument, but I swear to God, if I hear that argument one more time, I'm going to personally, I'm going to personally strap that person to a gurney.
But yeah,
there we go.
Oh yeah.
This is the problem with educated pros. They want to fix the death penalty, but the elected ones, I don't know what it is. Maybe all like legislative chambers are painted with like the substance that progressively makes people stupider. Like maybe it's painted with like a lead antimony like a lead antimony paint or something.
Which
and just constant
death penalty opponents double down on their stupidity.
Yeah. Because like there's literally the performance by the like take for instance your formerly existent state the void
we
the
don't
void south of Maryland and north of North Carolina Uh, the performance by the pros
Was
when fighting
absolutely
that abolition bills was atrocious. Like I have never seen like those pros had their arguments handed to them on a silver platter.
Oh yeah, same with Wyoming. When
Yeah,
Hopkinson, they were very very quiet about that, except for that anti who said it didn't make us safer. Well, objectively, it fucking did. I mean, with
yeah.
Hopkinson ordered, hmm,
Which is funny because that anti, his uncle owns the very house that Mark Hopkinson ordered blown up. They rebuilt the house, and his uncle now lives there.
yeah. The funny thing is with some of these people, it's basically the never forget when it comes to the intervention thing where you have people who because they didn't intervene in like let's say the Holocaust and leading to thousands of people millions of people dying and then they have the audacity to say never forget. It's the same fucking thing with these people. They eliminate the death penalty for people like Mark Hopkinson, people like Donald Gaskins, and then when they inevitably continue to commit more murders unchecked, they then have the guts to say, "Oh well, we remember the victims." No, no, you don't give a shit about them. If you did, you would bring it back for at least fucking prison ordered murders or recidivist murderers. There's no argument against having it for them. None.
Yeah, they're trying to do that in Washington. The pros are trying to reintroduce a bill. I mean, it has zero chance of passing, but they are trying to introduce a bill that reinstate the death penalty for murder of a correctional officer by inmates. Um, that's too narrow a bill for me, but even that isn't going to come to a vote. It's just
Mhm.
I wish that I wish that the pros are more proactive.
Yeah,
Um, because I've noticed a lot of the pro death penalty politicians they don't run on that issue. They run on stupid stuff like cancel culture or gay marriage or trans sports or whatever. Um, like they lost that culture war, and they should get over it.
yeah.
But well, anyway, the video's over, and I can already detect a noticeable decrease in my brain output. So um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess that do you want if you want to make a closing statement, before we wrap things up,
I mean, I
go ahead.
mean, the, I took a big hit just by listening to his absolute bullshit. But fortunately, it wasn't that severe that I became against the death penalty because I'm serious. I'm
Yeah,
for some crimes I'm never gonna budge on that issue.
yeah. I mean, even when I didn't really care about it, I was never against it. Um, I only really became uh kind of like an avid death penalty supporter when I was around like 14 or so.
Uh,
But
a lot of people ask me why I'm so vociferously vocal about the death penalty. My response is because of the fact that it's not really an issue that's really well, it's an issue that's becoming more and more under attack. If we were in the 90s when support for the death penalty was in the 60s or 70s percentile, then I wouldn't need to be as vocal because it would be kind of pointless because there were a lot of people who were already vocal about it. But I mean, times have changed, unfortunately.
yeah, the support is narrowing. I still think there will always be I still think pros will at least for the near future be in the majority.
Yeah, I
But the
mean,
problem is if they're not vocal about it, then it's not going to make a difference.
also, the way that the support for the death penalty is pulled, I always love how they do it. It's they just ask, oh, "What's your preferred punishment for someone who's convicted of murder?" Well, here's the thing: not all murder cases are the same. If you word the poll a different way, for example, let's say the way you asked were, "Is there any circumstance that you can imagine where the death penalty would be an appropriate punishment for a certain type of murder?" I guarantee you the results are going to be a lot higher for support.
Oh yeah, um, yeah, and actually
I don't
when
care
the
how remote it is if it's fucking Hitler.
Yeah.
Prediction the worst fucking case scenario.
I remember in the year in like 2001, Gallup did like a poll about support for the death penalty, and it was something like 66% were in favor of it generally. But when they switched the question to "Do you think Timothy McVeigh should be executed?" the number jumped to 77%. Um, and so yeah, if you get into the specific cases, people are a lot more likely to be in favor of it.
Look 1 second. Do we have? Hold up. Shit, no. This part's down. I'm looking at the polling for the death penalty when it's asked properly.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me see.
Also, whenever anyone tries the pro-life argument, um, you uh, you can feel free to use this meme.
I am.
I won't charge royalties. Um, I just just use it and just use it as liberal as you want, because I am so sick of that damn argument
Yeah.
of, oh, if you can't support the death penalty if you're pro-life. Just
Okay.
use this
Well,
meme on me.
well, by that logic, if you support freedom, you can't support incarcerating violent criminals. Otherwise, you're a damn hypocrite. Also, as I said before, you can't call yourself pro-choice if you don't allow a jury the right to choose to impose the death penalty in certain cases.
Oh yeah.
So I guess that's it for the stream.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, do you want to make a closing statement, or do you think you've already said it?
I think I already knocked that out of the ballpark.
All right. Well, I think that was a good stream. I will
Also,
try to.
my
I'll try.
Twitter handle for anyone who's curious is um @_death_watch.
Oh yeah, be sure to follow Pro Death Penalty on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um, very base takes, very and very thorough coverage of executions. You're there for
Yeah.
almost every single one. Yeah. All right. So, all right, that wraps it up. This is my first live stream. I might do more in the future.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out StreamYard. And I think my free trial will expire soon, but I have money, I can cover it.
All right.
So, all right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.